big thing that we try to focus on is buying good properties. There are plenty of opportunities where we can buy properties that have issues. Even if we can pick up a property like that really cheap, they're really tough to sell generally. So I know that if I buy a quality property and I can put it on the market for a price below what the competitive properties are at in an area where properties are selling, then I know it's going to sell.
Welcome to the High Voltage Business Builders Podcast, a show where we interview high voltage entrepreneurs growing and scaling through e-commerce, real estate, and other wealth without Wall Street ventures, showing you the path to making your first or next million. All right, folks, I'm excited to have this episode because, we talk a lot about e-commerce, but we also talk about business building. We talk about wealth without Wall Street alternatives. We talk about financing. Sometimes we talk about real estate. We talk about other things. And today I have a very interesting guest I wanted to bring on who's going to speak about other ways to diversify your portfolio. You might not have yet taken the leap into e-com per se, or you may be in e-com and saying, hey, I'm making good money now. I want to diversify into some other stuff. I might want to go into different brands, different products, or I may want to take that money and put it somewhere else. Well, here's an alternative that we're going to talk to today. And this guest is in the business of land flipping in the real estate world. And I thought it'd be fun to bring Pete on here to have a conversation about this and get a little bit more details into what it looks like, what it might work like for you, how he got started. And we'll just break all of those down today. Pete, thanks for joining the call, bud.
Hey, great to be here, Neil. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's excellent. So let's talk the business of land flipping. Because I think we understand the concept and I think most people get it, buy land, sell land, like buy real estate, sell real estate, buy products, sell products. But obviously there's some, and I'm going to call them idiosyncrasies, but there's some nuances to this kind of business. Just first start off by saying, how many land flipping deals did you do in the last year, just to give some perspective?
This year, so far in 2022, I think we are at 55 so far this year.
So you're not new to this, just to be clear.
No, not new to this. No, actually, I'm almost at about the 2-year point when I've started off this whole land flipping business. Okay. And so it's been quite a journey, learned quite a lot. I've been involved in real estate since 2002, pretty much. But
so you've had some fun rides over the last.
Some fun rides. That's a good way to put it.
some good fun. You're still in it, clearly, so it wasn't a devastating
I'm still alive,
impact. Yes. Yeah, you're still in it, which means agility is good, and you may have mastered some things about it, obviously, which are great. But why the last 2 years? Why land flipping? And just to preface that, how many did you flip year one versus year two that you're into now?
Yeah, first year we did 38, and that was we did our first completed flip in March of 2021, and then this year we've done 55 so far. Okay. So nearing on 100 full transaction, 100 full flips that we've done. And the growth in the revenue has been considerable, and also the growth in the gross profit as well.
Do you find people are still really buying a lot more land this year than the year previously, given all market conditions, currently?
They really are. We haven't noticed a huge decrease in the market conditions. I'm kind of bracing for it to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the model is that our average hold time is about 60 days. And that was the same last year as it is this year. So we're able to, I think, adapt pretty quickly if the market does start to change on us.
Do you see part of that being the buyers? Has that changed a little bit in terms of maybe who's buying, who's capitalizing, that kind, and for what reasons?
It's hard to say. It's interesting. This year, for some reason or another, this year I've noticed that there are more of the buyers are not just cash, but they're using, say, a home equity line of credit or something like that in order to fund their transactions.
Okay, so literally with cash or equity or some other OPM that they're using to deploy to land flipping. You're not particularly working with billionaires and large hedge funds, are you, in terms of acquiring land?
As far as the buyers go, no. Most of the properties we buy sort of end up as either a potential home site for someone. Now, these are larger properties for the most part. I mean, this year we're kind of focusing on larger properties. Initially put our baseline at about 10 acres, and now we're looking at 25 acres plus because it's easier to make the profit on those bigger deals.
Yeah, but it seems to me you're kind of following a market, at least from my perspective, which I'm going to say, and you can validate if I'm even over the target at all, which is going to be people trying to maybe get out of local city centers or suburbs, et cetera, who are looking for a little land to kind of get out there. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's really pretty accurate because we're buying normally within an hour or 2 hours of a major metropolitan center. And so, a lot of these people are either looking for something that could be a recreational property that they can go to, or maybe they buy it with that intent initially, but thinking, hey, I'd like to build a place out here in the near future, or maybe in the future at some point. So that tend to be a lot of the buyers, I think.
Well, I'm assuming that what you're buying, you've got some criteria around, like it has to have land, or maybe it has water, or it's already got a pre-built site on it, or maybe it's completely evergreen, right? Are there areas you don't touch in those?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain states and certain counties and things that we focus on. We're doing a lot of stuff on the East Coast now. Right now, we're not really doing much in California where I live, or some of the desert type states are kind of not my thing. I know some people focus on those and they love those areas in the land flipping business, but our niche has kind of been mostly the East Coast and a little bit into the Midwest as far as areas that we try to focus on. Okay. And the other big thing that we try to focus on is buying good properties. There are plenty of opportunities where we can buy properties that have issues. Issues could be it's landlocked, or issue could be it's all swamp or something like that. But I'll tell you, those, even if we can pick up a property like that really cheap, they're really tough to sell generally.
So it's about value of quality, and what you consider to be good is something that obviously you've defined the criteria and gotten pretty good as you're closing in on 100 properties where your niche is, right? What's like maybe one or two things? I guess you mentioned swamp, of course. Who doesn't want to live in a swamp, right?
Right.
So a good portion of Louisiana, sorry folks, is probably out off the radar. High floodplains, I'm sure.
Yes, that's another one.
Yeah, hurricane or other areas that are impacted or have required higher insurance, I assume. Mm-hmm. I'm literally making this off. I don't flip land.
No, these are all good things. I mean, they're all considerations, really. I mean, I don't like properties that are too sloped, even though you can pick up really sloped properties cheap sometimes. Yeah, they're in my experience, they've been tough to resell. And obviously, if there is no legal access, if the property is landlocked, and you'd be surprised how many properties out there are actually landlocked. You have a very limited buyer pool. You've got, maybe the neighbors you can sell it to, or someone that doesn't mind buying something that's, that's not accessible.
Well, I acquired 3.3 acres on the hill up here for specifically, number one, it's the coolest sledding hill in this area. And number two, it has a wet weather and a pond attached to a spring-fed pond on it that we now own as part of that property. So there were two assets that I felt were needed, and touched my property too. So I'm like, okay, I'll take that. But most people would look at that and be like, I don't want that. There's no value. But for me, taking the girls out and going sledding and getting a group of 10 or 20 people to go with us is a lot of fun, because it's a pretty
That sounds fun. When can I come over?
Dude, we're going to be building, I got a motor sitting in the shop, and we're going to build a lift that's going to pull people up from tubes and stuff and into the tree, so that, because it's vertical, and it's a fast.
You don't mess around.
No, I'm not going to mess around. We're some serious sledding out here. We're waiting for the snow to come. But I can see that as a land buyer in my local area, just for what I want, versus in a business professional, money making mode. But I can kind of see where this is going, and it's kind of an interesting proposition, which is what I want. I'm talking to you from someone who might be interested in buying additional land. So I'm trying to think, how would I do that? What am I looking for? What should I buy into? You mentioned a minimum acreage. Is there a minimum purchase you would look at in terms of what's reasonable for flipping for profit? Give me some specs.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'll touch on the last thing first. The minimum kind of price point that we do now is, I really don't like to buy things kind of less than $30,000 purchase price. A lot of them seem to be now in the $30,000 to $150,000 range as far as the purchase price goes. And, the main thing we try to do is we try to double our money on each transaction. If I look at something and say, hey, this is $30,000, I can put it on the market for $69,900, and after I pay for commissions and closing costs, I can probably double my money. Then that's kind of the buy range for me.
So as commission and closing costs, it brings up a question in my mind. Do I need to be a broker? Do I have to have a license? Do I need to be a real estate agent? Do I need some sort of personal asset in myself to get that done correctly?
You don't have to. In fact, we do incorporate the local brokers into kind of our business model. And we do that in a couple of ways. First of all, on the buy side, because, sitting at my desk here, I can look up a lot of information about property with the tools that we've got at our disposal, but local knowledge is really kind of invaluable, especially when you talk to someone that really knows what they're doing and they're a land specialist and they know all these different areas and how the pricing could be different in one area as opposed to another. So when we get a deal under contract, we're reaching out right to the local broker right away and saying, hey, what do you think of this property? Yeah. What do you think you could resell it for? Any potential issues we should look at? And they give us their opinion, and, we relist the property with them. So it's kind of, try to make it a win-win.
Is it easier for people to do that more locally, or does it really matter if I want to buy a property, say in, Vermont and I'm living in Missouri? Does that really make a difference?
You can buy them anywhere, and we buy them, everywhere across the country. I've been to a few properties that we've owned in the past, but that's like the exception to the rule. We went on a road trip and we were kind of near some of them, so that's why we saw them.
Not far away.
Yeah. So no, we don't see any of these properties who we can, utilize the whole country as our playing field, I guess you could say.
Well, I mean, it's opening a broader breadth. I mean, I can see going local and digging into that for quite a while before
and
you
some
need
people
it to
do that.
go
Some
out.
people really love that. It's my locality here it would be really tough. So.
Yeah, that would be, well, so would mine. I live in a town of 1,800 people. So my tracts are out here are usually very large. Unless you're right around the little city centers, right?
Right.
You're talking about 50, 100 acres or 40 or more. That's fascinating. Okay, so if you get involved in this minimum, say 30, you're looking for a product around the 30, how many acres is that typically? Are you saying that's the 10 to 25 acres range you're sort of looking for usually?
Yeah, I mean, and these areas vary. And when you get to the kind of these rural spots, they're kind of priced at a certain amount of dollars per acre. So some of these areas that are really out there kind of in the sixes, you would say, we might be able to buy them for $1,000 an acre, and then we might be able to net $2,000 an acre when we resell them. Other in rural areas might command, $5,000 an acre when we purchase it. So it just kind of depends on the area, really.
Yeah. What time requirements, if I were to get involved, is it going to be? Is it something I can do part-time? Is it something that I can start, if I'm working, if I'm already got other businesses I'm doing? Like, what do you recommend normally?
I think it's something that if you put in the effort and you really learn how to evaluate properties and you kind of learn the business model, it's something you could do on the side, especially if you start leveraging people, start building a team of people that you can rely upon. One of the things that's tough if you've got a lot of different things going on is responding to inbound calls, say from a property owner or something. I use a call service to handle that stuff. So I've got a call service that's on 24/7. They answer the calls. They go through a predefined script, which I give them, which allows us to be that first touch with a property owner. Now I should back up too and say that we generate all our business with direct mail. So we put together lists, we send out direct mail and actual offers to these property owners, and then they're contacting us back either through the phone or email, or they're actually sending us a letter sometimes back. So we get all those touch points. And so it's really important to be able to respond and adapt, when those leads come in.
I got another angle for you that's going to work really well, because I just did this podcast with Rick over at Simply Note, which was they got handwritten notes that they do with their machines and robotics and do direct mailing out to folks that are of interest.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Out. Yeah,
I've seen those, but I haven't dug into it.
Yeah, Simply Note, go check it out. He was listening to my last podcast. It's fresh in my mind, and it would be such a simple thing for you to do what you're doing and just simply get the direct mailing campaign out, and it's going to be handwritten notes in your writing in pen, done by the computer, so it'll be sent looking like it's from you to people whose
that's cool, especially the higher value type properties.
Higher value properties, handwritten notes. Yeah, he was giving some statistics off of it, and I thought you should know that because it was like 7 people a year get handwritten notes. But we get 4,000 messages a month through digital communications. And I'm thinking, there's 100 emails a day, which most people aren't always getting because of spam and other reasons. They're just not reading it. They're deleting it. So there you go, my friend. You should definitely take
I like it. I'll check into it.
Go check for direct mailing.
Simply Note, right?
Be huge. Yeah, Simply Note. A really cool guy. Rick was on here telling his story. He used to be a former NFL player. For you, anybody who might be listening, I think you should definitely take it out. Going after those particular individuals and stuff, do you find it's very competitive? Do you find that people are willing to negotiate? Do you find that they're pretty open to, hey, you selling your property or interested in selling your property?
We get a couple of different reactions. Some people are really open to it. Yeah. Some people are offended that I sent them an offer that's too low, and they call in and let us know about it. I understand. But obviously I'm not looking for those people. I'm looking for the people that are, motivated to sell something. And, we're not the option for getting top dollar for your property. I kind of use the analogy, like if you're going to sell a used car, the easy thing to do is to go trade it in at the dealer. And most people know that if you go trade it in at the dealer, you're not going to get top dollar. You're going to get what you can negotiate at the time. It's going to be something where they can make money and resell the car as well. But we're the easy option. We'll close quick with cash, and they don't have to go through the whole process of listing with the broker, waiting for the retail buyer to come along. And if you're pricing it at retail, it could be a while, it could be a year. It could be 18 months. So it just depends. It depends what the situation is. And we make sense for some people and other people we don't. It doesn't make sense. So,
well, obviously in the business side of things, you've been doing this for long enough to learn what you don't want to do, what you're doing well, what you are going to do better. Can you give me some insights into those learning experiences as you've got off in the last couple of years here?
Yeah. One of the big things is I've always been, I guess, a sucker for a good, cheap property, a good deal that seems really cheap. But, I bought properties which I thought, hey, this is an incredible deal. It's got some issues, some major issues sometimes. And I always thought like, oh, I can just resell it really cheap and it's going to be a good deal for the next person. But the problem is all of those properties, they're really, really cheap for a reason. And they're really difficult to sell. So even in the end, I'll sell them. It's just kind of like more hassle than it's worth. So my thing has been,
Go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
My thing has been to just buy quality properties. So I know that if I buy a quality property and I can put it on the market for a price below what the competitive properties are at in an area where properties are selling, then I know it's going to sell.
In terms of you, like in you and your business, are you primarily the operator that's been able to pull these 100 together? Do you have a team? You got employees? You got virtual assistants? Like how did you get to that, and where are you going, and how many do you want to get in the next year?
Yeah, well, I started out just me, and I had a virtual assistant from another business that I was doing, and I kind of brought him in and helped me with some of the kind of repetitive tasks, and kind of built it to the point where I've got a specialist in every single role now within the business. So I've got that call center, which they're not employees or contractors, they're just a service that I use. But then I've got an acquisition manager, then contacts these people and basically has all the direct communication with the property owner. So I don't talk to the property owners anymore. I've also got another team member that enters in everything into our CRM business system as the leads come in. I've also got another team member that helps me build the list and kind of refine those lists before we send them out. Yeah. I've got another team member that works on the due diligence side of things after we get things under contract. They compile all this information from all these different sources. I've got another team member who is evaluating these properties as they're coming in, basically taking a look at everything. What's the potential resale value on them? What are potential roadblocks that we might run into? Kind of coordinating with the agents as well. Then I've got another team member which does all my closings and works on both the purchase side and also the resale side to make sure I don't have to do a lot of that paperwork stuff.
To an organization, man. So what is that going to allow you to do next year?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get to $10 million next year in revenue, and that's at about 50% gross profit margin. And the other thing which kind of goes unseen in that is that I've got a portfolio of properties that we either own or are under contract, and it's continually growing as well. So even though it may not show initially in the revenue side, I've got some longer term projects that I'm working on. Some of these properties I may be holding and kind of working on sort of developing them a little bit or taking them farther in the development process, building value that way. So the portfolio value is growing of my properties that we own, and then also the revenue, trying to really grow that.
So if people want to learn more about what you're doing and how you walked that process and got to the point where you've got that much people, infrastructure, and things in place to start growing and scaling really for the next year, which is amazing. I know you got a podcast coming up, correct? It should be launching.
Yeah, exactly. I'm launching a podcast with my wife, and it's about real estate investing. It's called Turning Profit, and you can find everything at turningprofit.com. Also, along with that, I do a monthly income report. So I detail out all our revenue that we generate in the business, deal by deal, properties that we sold, like what went well, what didn't go well, how much we made on that property, gross profit, and, just some lessons along the way. And I wish everything could be a good property and huge amounts of profit, but you have some really good ones and you have some ones that are okay, and then you have ones that you break even
averages
on, so.
Man, we're not into we don't hit home runs every time we get up to bat.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be awesome. It's totally unrealistic. And I think people think of that because it's like 4 years, 5 years, 15 years to an overnight success, and all of a sudden it looks like everything you hit's a winner, right?
That's right. Yes.
But it isn't. It is never always a winner.
No. So, and I don't have any sort of training program or anything like that, but
sure.
My goal is just to kind of put the information out there. And I think it's an interesting business model for some people that could really be life-changing if you really dug in and did it well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be picking your brain. No doubt about it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. On lumber sledding.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come over, get some sledding and hot cocoa. We'll make it happen, man.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thanks so much for coming on, dude.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Neil.
If you like this episode, please share it with people you think will enjoy it as well. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for a brand new episode of High Voltage Business Builders.